you, decided you wanted to get in shape.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just wanted to lose a few pounds.
Yeah.
You probably opened up your phone to look for some advice. And I mean, within 5 minutes, you were just hit with this tidal wave of completely contradictory information.
Oh, absolutely. It's a mess out there.
It really is. Like, one person is screaming that you need to cut out all carbs immediately because insulin is the enemy.
Right.
And then, another influencer is telling you that cardio is a complete waste of time and you only need to lift heavy weights.
Exactly. Or the guy selling those magical fat-burning supplements.
Yes. Or the people claiming that if you just fast for 16 hours a day, the laws of thermodynamics just somehow stop applying to you.
Which is, biologically impossible.
Right. But it's an incredibly overwhelming, loud, and confusing space. You step into it looking for a clear path, and instead you find yourself completely paralyzed.
And, well, it's paralyzing because the fitness industry actually profits immensely from that confusion.
Oh, totally.
Like, we inherently want things to be simple, right? We want a binary, clean equation, like do this specific routine, get that specific body.
Just give me the spreadsheet, basically.
Exactly. But human physiology, especially when it's actively colliding with our modern, largely sedentary lifestyle, it's anything but simple. It's a highly adaptable, survival-driven machine.
Which is why we're doing this. So, to cut through all that overwhelming noise, today's deep dive is stripping away all the influencer pseudoscience to look at the absolute biological math of energy expenditure.
Yeah, getting back to the actual science.
Exactly. We are unpacking the actual mechanisms of how your body burns fuel. We're going to bust some of the most pervasive fitness myths out there.
Spot reduction, fat burning zones, all of it.
All of it. And we're going to explore how real sustainable change actually happens. And spoiler alert, it doesn't happen through crash diets or magic pills. It happens through behavioral science and basic physics.
Which is incredibly empowering once you understand it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we need this clarity now more than ever because the landscape right now is pretty stark.
Yeah, the statistics in our source material are just staggering.
They are. We are looking at a society where approximately 66.3% of adults in the United States exhibit overweight or obesity.
Wow. Over 66%.
Yeah. And the numbers in Canada are tracking almost identically. Like, rates of overweight and obese females and males are at 44.2% and 60.1%.
So this isn't just a niche issue.
No, not at all. We are fighting this massive evolutionary mismatch. Like, our bodies are perfectly evolved to survive famines that just don't happen anymore.
Right, because we live in an environment that just constantly bombards us with hyperpalatable calories.
Exactly.
And that evolutionary mismatch is exactly where I want to start. Because if over 66% of the population is struggling with this, it tells me that this isn't just, a failure of individual willpower.
Right.
This is a systemic issue. And what's most exciting to me about the science we're unpacking today isn't just the cold math of calories in and calories out. It's the deep psychological insight into, why you eat.
And how your environment actually sets you up to fail.
Yes. And how you can actually trick your own biological habits to make lasting changes. So today we're going to explore the critical boundary between a fitness professional and a dietitian, peer into the incredible engine that is your metabolism, and put diet and exercise in the ring for the ultimate showdown.
And then look at a real-world case study to see how it all applies.
Exactly. So let's build that foundation, because navigating that metabolic engine means you need to know who you should actually be listening to in the first place.
Right. Which brings us to the massive professional wall in the fitness industry known as the scope of practice.
Okay, yes. I found this boundary fascinating because honestly, it feels totally counterintuitive. Like, if you go to a personal trainer because you want to lose weight,
you expect them to hand you a meal plan.
Right. You expect a spreadsheet telling you exactly what to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But the American Council of Sports Medicine draws a very hard line here.
A very hard line. They explicitly forbid that.
Why? I mean, it feels like they're operating with one hand tied behind their back.
Well, they draw that line to protect you, the consumer. The guidelines state that fitness professionals definitely should possess a strong general understanding of basic nutrition.
Right.
But they must absolutely refrain from calculating, outlining, or prescribing an individualized weight management plan.
At all.
None. They can't advise on supplements, and they cannot prescribe specific nutrient intakes. That is the exclusive realm of a registered dietitian.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second. If I'm paying a trainer to transform my body, and fitness and diet are two sides of the same coin, How can they actually help me if half the equation is off limits?
I know it feels restrictive, but you have to look at the underlying biology and, frankly, the medical liability.
Okay, medical liability.
Yeah. Prescribing a highly individualized diet plan to treat a specific condition requires clinical training. A personal trainer doesn't know how, say, a sudden ketogenic diet might interact with your specific thyroid medication.
Oh, wow. Hadn't thought about that.
Right. Or how dropping your sodium intake might affect an underlying cardiovascular issue. A registered dietitian spends years studying clinical pathology. A fitness professional studies movement.
Okay, so the trainer is there to optimize the engine, but the dietitian determines the highly specialized chemical makeup of the fuel if you have a medical issue.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean trainers are just completely gagged when it comes to food. They actually have a massive role in education.
Okay, so what can they actually tell you?
They can provide robust education on established food guidance systems like the USDA Dietary Guidelines or Canada's Food Guide.
Gotcha.
They can explain what carbs, proteins, and fats actually do in the body. They can talk about the statistical relationships between chronic diseases and nutrient deficiencies. And honestly, the most important thing they can teach the average person is portion control.
Okay, portion control. This is where the source material gets so interesting because our modern environment has completely short-circuited our biology here. We suffer from what the text calls portion distortion.
Portion distortion, it's a huge problem.
There is clinical data revealing that most people wildly inaccurately estimate the total number of servings they eat in a day.
Oh, completely. We have totally lost sight of what a normal serving size actually looks like.
Because of the supersizing of our food culture, right?
Yeah, it's an insidious environmental shift. We are economically conditioned to seek value, more food for less money.
Right, the supersized meal deal.
Exactly. And this has led to a massive inflation of portion sizes in restaurants and packaged foods. And the problem is biological, because our visual cues often override our internal satiety signals.
Wait, what does that mean? Visual cues?
Well, if you are served a massive plate of pasta, your brain relies on the visual cue of an empty plate to tell you that you are finished.
Oh man, so you just eat until the plate is clear.
Right. And by doing that, you're often completely ignoring the hormone leptin.
Leptin.
Yeah, leptin is the hormone that's desperately trying to signal to your brain that you are full. But your eyes are saying, no, there's still food on the plate. Keep going.
Our eyes are literally lying to our stomachs.
Exactly.
And the analogies that text uses for real serving sizes are so humbling. Like, a serving of pasta is supposed to look like half a baseball.
Half a baseball. When was the last time you saw a restaurant serve that?
Never. And a bagel is supposed to be the size of a hockey puck. A medium piece of fruit is a baseball. A baked potato should be roughly the size of the computer mouse.
And my favorite, a single serving of meat is roughly the size of a deck of cards.
A deck of cards. If you go to a steakhouse, you aren't served a deck of cards, you are served a football.
Right. The standard 8-ounce steak, which most people just consider a completely normal, reasonable single serving, that actually exceeds the maximum daily allowance for meat for an adult woman by more than 50%.
In one sitting.
Just in one sitting. And because you are battling these distorted visual cues, you really cannot trust your instincts when you are starting out.
So you have to intellectually recalibrate your understanding of fuel volume.
You do, because once you understand the incoming fuel, you have to understand how your body actually processes it. You have to understand the 3 distinct ways your body expends energy.
Okay, let's get into the engine, because this completely changed how I think about calories. The first way, and by far the largest, is the resting metabolic rate, or RMR.
Yeah, the RMR.
This is just the energy your body uses to keep the lights on. Like if you were lying in bed all day doing absolutely nothing, your body is still burning calories.
It is burning a massive amount of calories. For most people, RMR accounts for 60 to 75% of their total daily energy expenditure.
Wait, 75%? Just from lying there?
Just from existing.
Yeah.
Pumping blood, expanding your lungs, maintaining a core body temperature of 98.6 degrees. All of these are highly energy-intensive processes.
That is wild.
And on a deeper cellular level, your body is constantly running these sodium-potassium pumps to maintain cellular electrical gradients. It's synthesizing new proteins, repairing DNA. It's a massive invisible factory that never stops.
That completely flips the script on how we view weight loss. Because you naturally assume you burn the vast majority of your calories sweating it out on a treadmill.
Right, but you actually burn the vast majority just existing. And The biological math for estimating this baseline is actually pretty straightforward.
Okay, how do we calculate it?
For women, you multiply your body weight in pounds by 10. For men, you multiply by 11.
Okay, so if we take a 154-pound woman, her RMR is roughly 1,540 kilocalories a day.
Exactly. That is the baseline minimum just to keep her factory running.
And if you eat fewer calories than that over a sustained period,
The body begins to shut down non-essential functions to survive, but RMR is really only the first pillar. The second way you expend energy is the thermos effect of food, or TAF.
the thermic effect of food, meaning you actually have to burn calories to digest calories.
Yeah.
It's the biological equivalent of spending money to make money.
That is the exact mechanism. The thermic effect of food accounts for roughly 7 to 10% of your total daily energy expenditure.
So 10% of the calories I eat are just burned up digesting the food itself.
Basically, when you eat, your body has to secrete digestive enzymes. It has to physically churn the food in your stomach, absorb the nutrients across the intestinal wall, and then transport them through the bloodstream.
Wow.
All of that requires ATP, which is cellular energy. And this metabolic boost can last for more than 3 hours after a meal.
And the text points out that the type of macronutrient you eat completely changes the cost of that digestion. Like if you eat a meal high in protein, your internal engine has to work significantly harder to break it down compared to, say, a meal that is primarily fat.
It does. It takes way more energy.
Why is that? What is it about protein that makes it so expensive for the body to process?
It really comes down to molecular structure. Fats are relatively easy for the body to break apart and store. They're essentially ready-made energy reserves.
Okay.
Carbohydrates are slightly more complex. They require enzymes like amylase to break them into simple sugars. But proteins are massive, incredibly complex molecules.
Right.
They're made of these long chains of amino acids bound together by really strong peptide bonds.
So the body essentially needs like industrial tools to dismantle a protein molecule.
Exactly. Breaking those peptide bonds requires a massive amount of cellular energy. And furthermore, if the body wants to use protein for energy, it has to undergo a process called deamination in the liver.
Deamination.
Yeah, where the nitrogen component is stripped away and converted into urea to be excreted. That entire chemical processing plant requires serious energy.
So simply by shifting your diet to include adequate protein, you are subtly increasing your daily calorie burn just through the act of digestion.
You are. It's an automatic boost.
Okay, so we have the baseline factory running with RMR. We have the digestive cost with TEEF. The final component of the equation has to be the thermic effect of exercise, or TE.
Right, the conscious movement.
And obviously the intensity of the movement dictates the calorie burn here.
It scales dramatically. If you are lying down, you burn about 1 kilocalorie per minute. A brisk walk takes that to 5 kilocalories per minute.
Right.
Jogging pushes it to 10. An elite athlete sustaining a massive cardiovascular effort can burn over 20 kilocalories per minute.
A huge difference.
But intensity isn't the only factor here. There is a fascinating biomechanical reality that completely changes the math for beginners.
Oh, yes. The awkward swimmer phenomenon. I was captivated by this concept because we always view exercise as this sterile mathematical formula. Like if I run 3 miles at a 10-minute pace, my smartwatch tells me I burned exactly 350 calories. We assume the math is identical for everyone.
And that assumption is completely false. Yeah, because it totally ignores the efficiency of human movement. Biomechanics plays a massive role in energy expenditure. Think about an expert swimmer.
Okay.
They glide through the water, they have perfect form, minimizing drag, and they only recruit the exact muscle fibers necessary to propel themselves forward.
Right. They look effortless.
But a beginner, an awkward swimmer, is fighting the water.
They are flailing. Their hips are sinking. They're kicking way too hard from the knees instead of the hips. They're tense.
All of that flailing requires energy. They are recruiting secondary and tertiary muscle groups that have no business being involved in the movement. They are fighting gravity and water resistance with terrible leverage.
So because of this massive inefficiency, the awkward swimmer will actually burn significantly more calories going the exact same distance at the exact same speed as the Olympic swimmer.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is a phenomenal silver lining for anyone who feels intimidated starting a new fitness routine. You might feel uncoordinated, you might feel heavy, you might feel slow.
But because you are less fit and less efficient, you're getting a massively higher caloric return on your investment than the sleek, efficient athlete next to you.
That is amazing. Moving a heavier body with inefficient form is literally the ultimate calorie burner.
It is the one time where being bad at something pays incredible physiological dividends.
I love that.
But the caloric return on investment doesn't stop the moment you finish your workout either. We have to talk about excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, or EPOC.
Okay, EPOC. Most people just call it the afterburn effect, right?
Exactly.
Let's dig into the 14-hour study from the text, because this completely shifts the cost-benefit analysis of working out hard. What exactly did the researchers find?
They took a group of young men and had them engage in vigorous exercise, a highly intense 45-minute cycling bout.
So a tough spin class.
Right. They measured their energy expenditure during the workout, but more importantly, they tracked their metabolic rate after they stopped. They found that the subject's resting metabolic rate remained significantly elevated for 14 hours after the workout ended.
14 hours. You do a brutal 45-minute spin class, and your internal furnace is still burning extra fuel while you were asleep that night.
Yes.
Mechanically, what is happening in the body to cause that? Like, why doesn't the engine just immediately idle back down to baseline?
Well, because high-intensity exercise creates a massive biological debt.
A debt.
Yeah. During that 45-minute sprint, you depleted your muscles' ATP and creatine phosphate stores. You flooded your blood with lactic acid, you spiked your core body temperature, and you caused micro tears in the muscle fibers.
Oh, yeah.
The body has to fix all of that.
It has to pay the debt back.
Precisely. Clearing lactic acid from the bloodstream and converting it back into glucose in the liver, that takes energy. Replenishing ATP takes energy. Repairing muscle tissue requires massive amounts of protein synthesis, which, as we discussed, is metabolically expensive.
Right.
Furthermore, your endocrine system is highly stimulated. You have elevated levels of catecholamines, like adrenaline and noradrenaline, and cortisol circulating in your blood, which keep your cellular metabolism revved up.
And the math on this afterburn is staggering.
Yeah.
The researchers found that the calories expended after the exercise represented an additional 37% bonus on top of the net energy expended during the workout.
37%.
If you only look at the calories burned while you were on the bike, you were literally missing a third of the physiological benefit.
You are. This makes a really compelling case for pushing the intensity. But, and this is a big but, the moment we bring up high-intensity exercise, we crash headfirst into one of the most stubborn myths in the fitness world.
The fat burning zone.
The fat burning zone. It's a classic example of physiological data being wildly misinterpreted by marketing.
Okay, so to understand the myth, we have to look at the two primary fuel tanks the body uses during exercise, right? Free fatty acids, which are your fat stores, and muscle glycogen, which are your carbohydrate stores.
Yes. And the body is constantly mixing these two fuels. Think of it like a hybrid car switching between gas and electric depending on how hard you press the pedal.
That is a perfect analogy. So during very light exercise, say a casual stroll where you're working at 25 to 50% of your maximum oxygen uptake, the body prefers fat.
Right. About 50 to 70% of your energy comes from free fatty acids. Only 30 to 50% comes from carbohydrates.
I see exactly how the trap gets set. You read that statistic and think, wait, if 70% of my energy comes from fat when I'm barely moving, why would I ever sprint? Sprinting uses carbs. I should just walk slowly on a treadmill for 2 hours to melt the fat away.
It is a totally seductive, logical trap, but it completely ignores the concept of total energy expenditure versus proportional energy expenditure.
Okay, break that down for us. Let's look at the biochemistry of what happens when you press the gas pedal and increase the intensity.
Sure. So you start running hard, you hit 75% of your max heart rate.
Okay, what is happening in my cells?
At that high intensity, the metabolic demands for ATP are so rapid that the slow, oxygen-dependent process of burning fat, which is called beta oxidation, it simply cannot keep up.
The fat-burning engine is too slow.
Way too slow. So the body shifts to glycolysis, burning carbohydrates, because it is a much faster chemical pathway. And as a byproduct of this rapid carbohydrate burning, your body produces lactic acid.
And this is where the chemistry gets fascinating.
Yeah.
Because the lactic acid doesn't just sit there. It actually alters how your fat cells behave.
It does. An increase in blood lactic acid levels actually inhibits the action of certain lipases.
Lipases.
Those are the enzymes responsible for breaking down stored fat. The lactic acid essentially locks the free fatty acids inside your adipose tissue.
It traps the fat.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is your body's way of saying fat is too slow right now. Shut down that pathway. We need fast-acting carbs to survive the sprint.
Okay, so at high intensity, the proportion of fat you are burning drops drastically. Maybe only 30% of your energy is coming from fat. So the low-intensity crowd points to that and says, see, you stop burning fat. You're out of the fat-burning zone. How do we debunk that mathematically?
By looking at the absolute total, let's do the math. If you do a low-intensity walk for 30 minutes, you might burn 100 total calories. If 70% of that was fat, you burned 70 calories of fat. Now, you do a high-intensity run for that same 30 minutes, you might burn 400 total calories.
Right, way more overall work.
Exactly. Even though your proportion of fat burn dropped to only 30% because of the lactic acid, 30% of 400 is 120 calories of fat.
Oh, wow. So you burn 120 fat calories running hard compared to only 70 fat calories walking slowly.
Exactly. You completely beat the low-intensity workout in absolute fat loss, even though the percentage was lower.
That is such a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
The total energy expenditure is the overriding factor.
It always is. And furthermore, as your cardiovascular fitness improves through high-intensity training, your body adapts at a cellular level. You develop more mitochondria. You increase the activity of oxidative enzymes. You actually raise your anaerobic threshold, meaning a highly fit person can run at a fast pace and still rely heavily on fat for fuel, whereas an unfit person at that same speed would be drowning in lactic acid and strictly burning carbohydrates.
You are literally upgrading the cellular machinery to become a more efficient fat-burning engine at all speeds.
You are.
But I want to inject a massive dose of reality here, because this doesn't mean a fitness professional should tell a 300-pound, completely sedentary client to go do wind sprints until they vomit just to maximize EPO-C and total calorie burn.
Oh, absolutely not. Doing so would be professional malpractice.
That is the crucial caveat to all this metabolic math.
Right. If someone is severely deconditioned, their joints simply cannot handle the impact of high-intensity work. And psychologically, the intense pain will destroy their adherence. They'll just quit. For an inactive or obese individual, lower intensity exercise is absolutely the correct starting point. It builds adherence, it safely normalizes metabolic disorders like insulin resistance, and it protects their joints while still accumulating caloric expenditure.
You have to build the base before you turbocharge the engine.
Exactly.
But knowing how the engine burns fuel is really only half the battle, because eventually we have to confront the incoming fuel. We have to look at the ultimate showdown.
Diet versus exercise.
Yes, because if you ask the average person how to lose weight, their immediate instinct is to just stop eating.
They go on a massive restrictive diet.
Right. They want the numbers on the scale to drop immediately. And technically, the text points out that restrictive dieting alone does produce rapid weight reduction early in a program compared to exercise alone.
It does, which is the exact dopamine hit that gets people addicted to crash diets. They lose 5 pounds in 4 days and think they found the holy grail.
But the physiological cost of that approach is devastating. What is the body actually doing when you starve it?
The body perceives a severe caloric restriction as a famine.
It thinks you're dying.
Yeah, it doesn't know you want to look good in a swimsuit.
Yeah.
It thinks winter has come and there are no crops. Its primary evolutionary goal is survival. So it immediately downregulates that resting metabolic rate we talked about earlier.
It slows the internal furnace to conserve a dwindling energy supply.
Exactly. It becomes a biological hostage situation.
Yeah.
The body refuses to let go of its fat stores because fat is the most dense survival energy it has.
Okay, so if it won't burn fat and you aren't feeding it food, where does it get the energy to keep your brain and heart functioning?
It starts cannibalizing itself.
Wow.
It turns to your lean body tissue. Through a process called gluconeogenesis, your body breaks down your highly active, metabolically expensive muscle tissue and converts those amino acids into glucose to feed your brain.
And the statistics on this are terrifying. If you attempt weight loss by dieting alone, the weight you lose is composed of about 75% fat and 25% protein, which is your muscle tissue.
You are sacrificing a quarter pound of muscle for every pound you lose.
That's a catastrophic trade-off.
It really is. By losing that muscle, you permanently lower your resting metabolic rate.
So your engine shrinks.
Right. When the diet eventually ends, Because, let's face it, starvation is unsustainable, you return to your normal eating habits. But now your engine is smaller. You require fewer calories to survive than you did before the diet.
So the same amount of food now creates a massive caloric surplus.
Exactly. And you rapidly gain all the fat back, plus more. That is the biological mechanism of yo-yo dieting.
So how does exercise intervene in that downward spiral?
Well, when you combine a moderate diet with exercise, you completely shift the biological signaling.
Wow.
By using your muscles, you apply mechanical tension. That tension signals a cellular pathway called mTOR, which essentially tells your body, hey, we desperately need this muscle tissue for survival. Do not break it down.
Oh, that makes sense.
The result, adding exercise reduces that protein loss from 25% down to a mere 5%.
Wow. You save the engine while burning the fat.
You do.
The math is incredibly precise, and there is a brilliant case study in our sources of a woman named Gwen that illustrates exactly how to execute this balance.
Gwen's story is a great example.
Yeah, Gwen was 150 pounds, and her singular goal was to lose exactly 10 pounds to fit into a specific pair of blue jeans. So how did she leverage the math to do that?
She utilized the foundational rule of thermodynamics. A deficit of 3,500 kilocalories results in the loss of 1 pound of body tissue.
Okay, so 3,500 calories equals 1 pound.
Right. Gwen wanted to lose 1 pound a week for 10 weeks. So she needed a 3,500 calorie weekly deficit, which breaks down to 500 calories a day.
But she didn't just slash 500 calories from her plate,
No, she split the difference.
which is much more sustainable.
Exactly. She created a 250 calorie deficit through diet, perhaps cutting out a daily soda or a large snack. And then a 250 calorie deficit through exercise. She joined a noon aerobics class 3 days a week, burning about 300 calories a session. She walked to work 5 days a week, burning 150 calories a day.
And on the weekend, she played tennis, burning another 500.
It's a diversified portfolio of caloric expenditure.
I love that phrase. And the results speak for themselves. After an initial drop of water weight, she hit a steady, predictable rhythm. By the end of the 10 weeks, she had lost exactly the 10 pounds, and she wore those blue jeans to work.
It works perfectly if you stick to the math.
But I want to push back on Gwen's strategy for a minute. Because counting every single calorie, weighing every ounce of chicken, and logging every single brisk walk, that sounds miserable.
It is miserable.
Is that a sustainable way for a human being to live forever?
For the vast majority of people, absolutely not. It is incredibly tedious. But counting calories is a highly effective temporary educational tool.
Temporary. Okay.
Yeah. It is the only way to cure the portion distortion we discussed earlier. You have to track your food meticulously for a few weeks to truly understand the caloric density of what you are actually eating.
So you are basically just calibrating your internal spreadsheet.
Precisely. You do it until you develop an intuitive feel for your caloric balance. You begin to understand the energetic cost of your choices.
Right.
There was a fascinating study that looked at restaurant menus. They found that when menus displayed the amount of exercise needed to burn off a food item like explicitly stating that a slice of cheesecake costs a 90-minute brisk walk, patrons ordered significantly fewer calories than when the menu just displayed the calorie numbers.
Because 600 calories is just an abstract concept.
Yeah.
But 90 minutes of sweating on a treadmill is a highly visceral, tangible cost.
Right.
It actually changes your behavior.
Exactly.
But behavior isn't just about math. Dieting is an intense emotional and psychological landscape.
Yeah.
Why do we overeat even when we know the math?
Because human eating behaviors are tied to deep neurological reward pathways.
Right.
We rarely eat simply because we lack physical ATP. We eat for emotional regulation. Think about it. If your parents rewarded you with a cookie every time you accomplished something, or comforted you with ice cream every time you were sad,
Your brain wired those highly palatable, sugar-dense foods to feelings of love and safety.
yes, the dopamine loop is set in childhood. And as adults, when we are stressed at work or lonely or simply bored, our brain demands that dopamine hit.
That makes so much sense. The text notes that a massive amount of excess calories are consumed mindlessly on the couch late at night watching television. You aren't actually hungry. You're just seeking neurological stimulation.
Which is why telling someone to just eat less is a terrible strategy. It doesn't work. You have to uncover the emotional triggers.
So how do you do that?
Keeping a detailed food log that tracks not just what you ate, but the time, the place, and your emotional state when you ate it. That is a powerful diagnostic tool.
Are you eating because of physical hunger, or are you eating because your boss yelled at you?
Right. And once you identify the trigger, you can engineer your environment to protect yourself.
And the sources give some incredibly practical strategies for this. One is drastically reducing the friction of healthy eating.
Yes. Having pre-prepared healthy meals frozen and ready to go completely eliminates the excuse of being too tired to cook and ordering a pizza.
That's a game changer. Another psychological strategy is visual manipulation.
Oh, using smaller plates and bowls.
Yeah, it makes smaller portions appear massive. Your eyes tell your brain the plate is full, which helps trigger early satiety signals before your stomach even registers the volume.
Exactly.
And my absolute favorite story from the text is the fast food fat anecdote. It perfectly illustrates the trap of hidden caloric density. Tell us what happened to the man traveling on the road.
Oh, this is a classic scenario of well-intentioned failure. So, a man traveling for work knew his wife was cooking a highly nutritious, balanced dinner for when he got home. Chicken breast, baked potato, a large salad.
Sounds great.
But he was hungry at 4 p.m. To tide himself over, he stopped and grabbed a simple cinnamon bun with butter.
Just a harmless little snack, right?
The shock came when he finally looked at the nutritional data. That single, unassuming cinnamon bun contained a staggering amount of hidden fats and refined sugars.
How much?
It actually contained significantly more total calories than his entire massive, nutritious dinner that his wife was cooking.
That is insane. He completely derailed his entire day's caloric deficit with the 3-minute snack.
He did. It proves that not all calories are created equal in terms of volume and satiety.
He also discovered this when looking at fast food hamburgers, right?
Yeah. He assumed a burger was just a burger. But a giant double-decker burger with Spidle sauce contains nearly 600 kilocalories and is loaded with saturated fat.
Okay.
A regular single-patty plain hamburger from the exact same restaurant contains only 150 kilocalories.
Wow. So by simply choosing the plain burger over the heavily sauced double-decker, he saved 450 calories.
That is an entire day's caloric deficit preserved with one minor decision.
It really emphasizes why you must become aggressively food label savvy.
Yeah.
Because the marketing on the front of the box, like low fat or made with whole grains, that's just designed to sell products.
The objective truth is only found on the black and white nutritional label on the back.
So managing the incoming fuel is this constant behavioral battle against our environment. But if we want to truly transform the physiological machinery to armor the body and permanently stoke the metabolic furnace, we have to look at the other side of the equation. We have to talk about the resistance revolution.
Yes. Resistance training is easily the most misunderstood tool in weight management.
Especially for clients whose sole goal is to see the number on the scale go down, the biggest barrier to entry is this profound fear of getting bulky.
Oh, I hear this constantly. People are terrified to pick up a dumbbell because they think they will wake up the next morning looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right, so they just chain themselves to the elliptical machine.
It is a biological absurdity. Building massive hypertrophic muscle tissue requires a highly specific hormonal profile, specifically massive amounts of testosterone, and it requires a massive, sustained caloric surplus.
Meaning you have to eat a ton of food to get that big.
A ton of food. You literally cannot build bulky muscle while eating in a caloric deficit to lose weight. It won't happen.
So what does resistance training actually do during weight loss?
It acts as an insurance policy for your resting metabolic rate.
It prevents the body from cannibalizing the engine, like we talked about.
Yes.
Let's look at the actual math of how muscle changes your metabolism, because this is the closest thing to a magic trick in human biology. If you add 1 pound of muscle to your body, what happens?
Well, muscle tissue is highly active. It requires constant blood flow, oxygen, and nutrient turnover. Simply adding 1 single pound of muscle raises your rest metabolic rate by approximately 35 kilocalories per day.
35 calories a day doesn't sound like much on the surface, but the power is in the compound interest. If a client trains consistently and adds just 2 pounds of lean muscle tissue, she raises her RMR by 70 kilocalories a day.
Right. Now multiply that 70 calories by 365 days in a year. That equals 25,550 extra kilocalories burned over the course of the year.
And we know from earlier that a pound of fat contains roughly 3,500 calories.
Yeah.
So if we divide 25,550 by 3,500.
That equates to 7.3 pounds of pure fat burned.
Yes. Over 7 pounds of fat oxidized in a year, burned while you were sleeping, while you were sitting at your desk, or while you were driving your car, simply because you were carrying 2 extra pounds of metabolically expensive muscle tissue on your skeleton.
It's amazing. You have essentially upgraded your car's engine from a highly efficient 4-cylinder that sips gas to a massive V8 engine that guzzles fuel even when it is just idling at a stoplight.
That is the perfect way to put it. Resistance training isn't about the calories you burn during the workout. Aerobic exercise will always win that specific battle.
Oh, for sure.
Resistance training is about permanently altering the architecture of your body to make it an inefficient, calorie-guzzling machine 24/7.
It is a structural transformation. But once people finally accept they need to lift weights, they immediately fall into the next massive track, trying to dictate exactly where the body burns fat from.
Oh, spot reduction, the absolute holy grail of fitness marketing. Do this specific core workout to melt away belly fat.
It is a multi-billion-dollar lie.
It is entirely false, and we have the exact clinical data from the source material to prove it. Researchers designed a highly controlled study to test this exact premise.
Let's talk about the AB study.
They took 24 subjects, 14 men and 10 women, and had them perform a grueling abdominal routine. They did 7 different abdominal exercises, 2 sets of 10 repetitions, 5 days a week for 6 entire weeks.
That is an immense amount of targeted core volume.
It is. And crucially, they put them on an isocaloric diet, meaning their daily calories were strictly matched to their maintenance level so dietary weight loss wouldn't skew the results.
Right, isolated variables. How do they measure the outcome?
They use DXA scans, dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. This is the gold standard for body composition. It uses 2 different X-ray beams to explicitly measure bone density, lean muscle mass, and fat mass with pinpoint accuracy.
So they weren't just using cheap calipers or a bathroom scale. They could see exactly what happened to the fat cells sitting on top of those heavily trained abdominal muscles.
Exactly. What was the result?
After 6 weeks of intense core work, there was absolutely zero significant effect on body weight, total body fat percentage, abdominal circumference, or the specific localized fat mass around the trunk and abdomen.
Nothing melted.
Nothing. The fat stayed exactly where it was.
Why? Mechanically, why can't the working muscle just pull the fat from the tissue directly above it?
Because the biological pathways just don't work like that. Fat is stored as triglycerides in adipose tissue. When your body needs energy, your brain signals the release of hormones like adrenaline and noradrenaline into your general bloodstream.
Okay.
These hormones travel throughout your entire circulatory system, binding to fat cells globally, signaling them to break down triglycerides into free fatty acids and release them into the blood.
The signal goes everywhere. The working muscle pulls energy from the bloodstream, not from the local neighborhood.
Exactly. You cannot dictate where the hormones bind. Your genetics and your biological sex dictate where you store fat and where you lose it first.
So doing 1,000 crunches just builds an incredibly strong abdominal muscle that remains completely hidden under the exact same layer of fat.
Pretty much. The only way to remove that fat is through a systemic caloric deficit created by the diet, aerobic exercise, and systemic resistance training we've discussed.
But confronting this reality requires a massive psychological shift. This is where the source material introduces a profound pivot. Because if we only look at fitness through the lens of DXA scans, metabolic pathways, and kilocalories, we completely fail the human being.
Because humans are not just calculators.
No. The psychological burden of body image in our society is crushing. More than 50% of adult women report being dissatisfied with their weight, a concern that often takes root in high school and dictates their mental health for a lifetime.
It's heartbreaking.
If you walk into a gym and the trainer only measures your success by a completely arbitrary number on a scale or an aesthetic ideal promoted by a fitness magazine, you are destined for misery.
Our eyes see what society trains our brains to see. The media presents a hyper-curated, genetically elite, often surgically altered or digitally enhanced version of the human body as the ideal standard.
Which is fake.
For 99% of the population, achieving that image is biologically impossible, regardless of their diet or discipline.
Chasing that ghost is what causes eating disorders, severe depression, and the complete abandonment of physical activity. The science suggests a completely different target, the concept of the tolerable weight.
I really appreciate this concept. A tolerable weight is a complete paradigm shift.
How does the text define it?
It is a weight that falls within healthy physiological parameters, meaning your blood pressure, cholesterol, and metabolic markers are safe, but crucially, it is a weight where you are psychologically at peace with yourself.
It asks a radical question. Are you happy with your body as it functions right now?
Exactly. It is entirely unlinking your self-worth from your gravitational pull.
I love the mirror analogy challenge that professionals use for this. When someone has a deeply distorted body image, the goal isn't to change the body to match the image in their head. The goal is to repair the mind's perception of the reflection.
And that requires actionable psychological steps. It means consciously curating your media intake to look at diverse, realistic human bodies. It means throwing the bathroom scale in the garbage, or at least limiting its use to once a month. It means buying clothes that fit and flatter your body exactly as it is today, rather than punishing yourself by keeping a closet full of clothes that are 3 sizes too small as quote-unquote motivation.
Because if you view your current body with disgust, the act of exercising feels like a punishment. It feels like a chore.
But if you accept your body, exercise transforms into an act of maintenance and care.
Which leads us to the final and perhaps most important question. We know the math, we know the biochemistry, and we have the psychological framing. How do we take all of this clinical data and build a lifestyle that a normal, busy, stressed out human being will actually stick to?
You abandon the idea that fitness only happens inside a gym.
Okay, say more about that.
The most effective strategy for long-term weight management is activity integration. Many people simply will not adhere to a highly regimented 60-minute session on a stair climber 3 days a week. It requires too much time, driving, and friction.
So what is activity integration?
It's about identifying dozens of tiny opportunities to leverage non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT, throughout your normal day.
It's the compound interest of mild movement.
Exactly. Taking the stairs instead of the elevator, walking over to your colleague's desk instead of sending an email, parking at the absolute back of the grocery store lot,
Yeah.
pacing while you're on a phone call.
These seem completely insignificant in the moment. Like, the immediate calorie burn is tiny.
But the mathematics of compound interest are undeniable. Let's look at a simple daily brisk walk of just 2 miles.
Which takes maybe 30 or 40 minutes.
Right. In the short term, you might think, I burned 150 calories, what's the point? But if you sustain that daily 2-mile walk over the course of a month to 6 weeks, you will expend enough calories to equal the loss of nearly 2 pounds of pure fat.
2 pounds of fat oxidized just by adding a daily stroll.
Over a year, that is over 15 pounds. Combine that mild, frictionless increase in daily activity with a slight reduction in your daily food intake, like skipping the butter on the cinnamon bun, and a 10% reduction in your total body weight over 6 months becomes a completely predictable, mathematically certain reality.
It is the slow, quiet accumulation of positive physiological changes, and it provides immense psychological benefits. There is a phenomenal story in the literature called The Zen of Walking.
Oh, the 63-year-old man.
Yes, it details this 63-year-old man who was approaching retirement. His blood pressure was creeping up and his waistline was expanding. He knew that if he didn't change, his dream of a highly active retirement playing golf was going to be stolen by cardiovascular disease.
So what was his intervention?
Well, he didn't sign up for an elite boot camp. He didn't start a juice cleanse. He bought a portable music player. And he designated a specific window of time after work as his walking time.
He just walked out his front door.
Exactly. And as his cardiovascular fitness improved, he naturally extended his loops. Over the first 3 months, he steadily lost 1 pound a week. But the physical transformation was completely eclipsed by the psychological transformation.
The walk became his sanctuary.
It was the barrier between the stress of his workday and the peace of his home life. It became a moving meditation. He found the zen of the routine.
When exercise becomes a psychological anchor rather than a physical chore, adherence goes to 100%. This is the ultimate goal of the 10-step exercise prescription model.
The 10-step model. Walk us through how professionals synthesize all this science into a human life.
Well, it involves reviewing needs and goals, selecting aerobic activities, methods, intensities, and volumes. Doing the same for resistance training and designing progression and warm-ups. But to really understand how powerful this is, we have to look at how it was applied to a real person.
Let's examine the case study of Fred.
Fred is the ultimate archetype of modern creeping obesity.
He's a 42-year-old insurance broker. He used to be active. He coached basketball for 17 years. But the friction of life took over. His busy practice and a new weekend cottage consumed his time. For 5 years, his physical activity dropped to absolute zero.
And his physiology reflected that inactivity. His assessment showed he weighed 185 pounds, giving him a body mass index of 28, placing him squarely in the overweight category.
Okay.
His body fat percentage was 24.5%. His desk job had ruined his posture, giving him lumbar lordosis and rounded shoulders.
Which means lower back pain.
Exactly. Crucially, his blood work showed elevated cholesterol and his blood pressure was creeping into the borderline hypertensive range.
He was a heart attack waiting to happen. That medical checkup was his wake-up call. So, step 1 of the model. What were his goals? Fred wanted to lose 12 pounds in 6 months and 24 pounds in a year. He needed to lower his cholesterol, and he specifically wanted to strengthen his core and fix his posture.
Now, a poor trainer would hand Fred a generic bodybuilding template. They would tell him to go to the gym for 90 minutes a day and lift heavy iron.
But Fred's life doesn't have room for a 90-minute gym commute.
The prescription had to be built around his existing infrastructure. So for the aerobic component, they leaned heavily into activity integration.
Fred realized he lived close enough to the office that he could walk. It was a 20-minute commute, so he simply replaced his car with his legs. Walking to and from work every day meant 10 trips a week at 20 minutes each.
That single, frictionless behavioral change burned an estimated 1,400 kilocalories a week.
That is almost half a pound of fat burned every week just commuting.
Exactly. They then layered on activities he inherently found joyful. He loved basketball, so he started participating in the weekly hour-and-a-half practice with the team he coached. For his weekends at the cottage, they integrated cross-country skiing in the winter.
The aerobic base was completely integrated into his life. But what about the resistance training? We know he needs to preserve muscle and fix his posture, but he refuses to go to a commercial gym.
The trainer brought the gym to him. They set up a tiny, dedicated corner right inside Fred's insurance office with a yoga mat, some resistance tubing, a music player, and a chart on the wall. Fred committed to just 3 10-minute sessions a week, done right in his office.
10 minutes. That proves you don't need a massive time block to create a biological stimulus.
You really don't. And the exercises were surgically precise for his issues. 3 shoulder exercises with the tubing-like lat pull-downs to pull his rounded shoulders back and prepare his joints for the cross-country skiing pulls. And 3 core exercises like twisting curl-ups and 4-point extensions to stabilize his spine, fix the lumbar lordosis, and strengthen the abdominal wall.
2 sets of 10 to 15 reps, 3 times a week. It was so simple and required so little friction that he could literally do it in his work clothes and check it off the wall chart.
But the exercise prescription would have failed if they didn't address the fuel. Fred's environment had to change, and that required a support system.
Fred's wife came to the follow-up session. She recognized that she was part of the environmental friction. She agreed to completely eliminate the high-fat snacks and junk food they habitually ate while watching TV at night. Fred openly admitted that if the food was in the cupboards, his willpower would fail.
Willpower is a finite resource. Environmental design is infinite. By acting as the gatekeeper of the kitchen, she completely removed the behavioral trigger. She also helped monitor their fast food intake when they traveled to the cottage.
So we have a man who walks to work, pulls on some rubber tubing in his office for 10 minutes a day, shoots some hoops on the weekend, and stops keeping junk food in the house. What does the biology do in response to these incredibly mild, consistent lifestyle changes? What happened after 6 months?
The biological response was spectacular, primarily because his adherence was nearly perfect. Fred lost almost 15 pounds, completely smashing his initial goal of 12 pounds.
His waist circumference shrank by 2 full inches. His blood pressure dropped out of the danger zone, normalizing at a perfectly healthy one, 30/84. His posture improved, eliminating his back pain. And on a daily basis, he reported feeling vastly more energized and less fatigued by his demanding job.
His physician was thrilled, noting that the weight loss and aerobic base would undoubtedly pull his cholesterol back into normal ranges. But the most beautiful biological ripple effect was on his environment.
Oh, his wife.
His wife, simply by acting as the kitchen gatekeeper and occasionally joining him on his walks, inadvertently lost about half the weight Fred did.
The health of the entire household was elevated by simple math and behavioral design. Fred's story is the perfect synthesis of everything we have unpacked today.
It really is.
Weight management is not a crash diet, and it is not a torture chamber in the gym. It is a dual-pronged approach. First, it requires understanding your eating behaviors, recognizing portion distortion, managing caloric intake, and outsmarting leptin resistance. Second, it requires the steady integration of physical activity, raising your total daily energy expenditure through joyful aerobic movement and fiercely protecting your metabolically active muscle tissue through resistance training.
It is about aligning your daily habits with the undeniable laws of thermodynamics. It is making the biological math work quietly in the background of your life, whether that is a 20-minute walking commute or the zen of an evening stroll.
Whether you are trying to drop 10 pounds for a specific event, or you are like Fred trying to outrun cardiovascular disease, the secret does not exist in a magical supplement. It exists in the consistent application of behavioral science and the profound understanding of how your cellular engine actually operates.
If we step back and view all of this in a broader context, it leads to a rather profound philosophical realization.
Yes, sir.
The data repeatedly highlights that our modern environment is actively engineered against our biology. From supersized restaurant portions designed to hijack our visual cues, to the complete elimination of manual labor through technology, our society is structurally optimized for absolute physical inactivity and excessive caloric intake.
We live in an obesogenic world. Sedentary living and hyperpalatable, calorie-dense foods are the default settings of modern civilization.
They are.
Which leaves us with a provocative final thought for you. If our entire environment is engineered to make us soft, sick, and immobile, then choosing to take the stairs instead of the elevator, choosing to understand the math of a nutritional label, or choosing to lift a few weights in the corner of your office is no longer just a simple fitness decision.
It's so much more than that.
In a world designed to break your metabolism, is consciously moving your body and understanding your biology actually a fundamental act of rebellion?
I think it is. It is the ultimate reclamation of autonomy. You are taking back control of your physiology from a system that profits immensely from your confusion and inactivity.
And as we've explored today, once you clear away the noise, the path forward isn't muddy at all. The laws of physics and biology are clear. It's just a matter of doing the math, understanding the magnificent machinery of your own body, and taking that first intentional step.